Recording in progress.
All right, good evening. This is the October 2025 meeting of what used to be called South Suburban Computer Club, now renamed Windows, Office, and AI. Tonight we need to, in open forum, to discuss whether that new name change needs to be altered or not. And we also need to discuss some other issues, but I may hold that off until towards the end of the meeting. I have a handout for folks, barely got it done, and I got a special presentation that'll be first. It's for people that are stuck on 10, whatever their reasons, and they haven't gotten the ESU notification. I've got a simple, relatively speaking, fix. Please think of people beyond yourselves as to whether or not it applies to you. Think of other people, your neighbors, your co-workers if you're still working somewhere, your other people, relatives that you know that have older machines stuck on 10 and haven't gotten the option for the ESU. Okay, now I'll let each of you, I suggest use the space bar to speak, raise your hand to be called upon to speak, and we'll go from there. So I'm opening the floor to open discussions. Anybody got any problems, questions, issues, etc.? Now, one thing I did not do so far that supposedly Sanford should have done in the TNT SIG, and I missed Northwest with Ed Keating, mostly because I remembered the meeting in the morning, but I got so tied up, and I'm got a furnace problem to boot that I've been trying to work on. It was like between 9:30 and 10 o'clock p.m. our time before I realized, whoops, I forgot the meeting. Oh well, that's the way it goes. So, okay, I guess we'll let Dennis speak. Okay.
The ESU, I guess that's extended security thing.
Yes.
Um, when I don't have a Microsoft account. When I brought up my Windows 10, I just created a local account. Now this is years back. Because of that, I'm not going to get any notice about extended security from them, right? Until I
That,
create an Microsoft account.
yes, you have to create a standard Microsoft attached account as minimum. But to do this change that I have, you have to log into the local administrator account, or at least you should have your administrator account as local, not as standard. So it's a security issue, and you only go into the administrator's account when you really need to. But you do have to create the standard account first, get that set up. Then you can do the ESU change in the administrator's account, which I'll get to when we start doing presentation.
Okay, so I have to log on to the computer, be in as an administrator, and then go through the procedure of contacting Microsoft to create an account
Well,
with
all you
them.
do is you go into your system settings for 10. Once you got there, you want to look for accounts. And in accounts, you want to look for other users. And under other users, you'll put in the name you want that to represent you as a person, usually like a full name, by either putting in an existing acceptable email account that you may already have. If it doesn't like it, go through any email accounts you have. They usually will accept Yahoo and Gmail, or at least they used to. I don't know if they still do. The worst case, it gives you an option to create an Outlook.com account, and you will generate a new account for that, and through that, it will create the user. You make it a standard account. Then you log out of or sign out. They're synonymous in meeting, of the administrator's account. When you get back to the login screen, you should see a new entry down in the bottom left corner. That'll be your new account that you're trying to create. You click on that and put in the appropriate password for that account. And then once you've got that, it should come up and say hi and go through the entire setup process based upon what you have on your system in the administrator's account that applies to all users. And then you'll get the desktop and you'll be able to interact, and you are part of Microsoft's ecosystem. Okay, so far? Are you all right?
I'll review the video again, but I think more or less I understand.
Well, we're not going to post the video for at least 3 months.
Oh,
Bob?
The way I got introduced to the Microsoft Cloud account was through the Microsoft Store. When I update that, if I want my personal apps to be updated for any user, Microsoft wants me to log into my Microsoft account, or I would have to create one.
Well, that's another option too. It's not the norm for the majority of users. You go through the accounts settings, and that is the way it gets done. And you can only see when you bring up accounts, you only see the account that you are now logged into. But if you look under other people, it will show you any other accounts on that system that you've created.
Yeah, but one way or another, you have to contact your Microsoft account and have it active in order for this option to show up.
would it make sense to, first thing I do is just go out and just create a Microsoft Outlook account and have that in my bag, and then go through the process of converting?
It's part of the process, so you don't have to make it in advance or anything. When you say, I want to make a new account that's an other user, it will go through the process. You got to give it a valid URL that it will accept for an existing email account that you have. Try those first. As a court of last resort, it gives you the ability to create the Outlook.com account. And that's fine too. Those are all your options just to be creating a new account. And you have to set it to standard. Usually it'll come up standard.
I'm thinking that in the process that I may not want to give it my Gmail or account or anything, and maybe would
Well, that's
maybe I would
okay. That
maybe
that
I would create the Outlook account in advance to have that because I don't want to give them my Gmail
you
necessarily.
don't have to. If you don't want to
Oh,
do that, you just say create new account. It's an
okay.
Outlook
Okay.
account. It's an
All
option
right.
there.
Got it.
Many people want to use their existing email accounts and only use the Outlook if they either have some reason of not using one of their accounts. I've got over a dozen.
Okay.
Some of them are registered with Yahoo accounts. Some of them are registered with Gmail accounts or other accounts. So what? And I also have some Outlook ones that I decided I'll make it the Outlook one. Outlook comes free to Microsoft attached users. A lot of people don't take advantage of it, which doesn't bother Microsoft one way or the other. All right, anybody else got any questions, issues, etc.? Boy, I feel like I'm almost by myself. Only three of us here. Bert?
All right. I had an interesting situation. I had an update, my regular Windows update, and it wanted to install 25H2.
Yes.
And it got to the end and hit an error. It wasn't, so I went to various apps to try and understand what was happening, what it was. And I went through a scan disk. I went through different searches that you do to be able to find any corrupt files, and went through all that. And finally, came up with another message that said it was a missing driver.
That can happen. That's not a joke.
I understand. So, what I've been reluctant. I mean, there are sites you can click on that to install drivers, but when they do that, they also take over your machine, so to speak. In other words, they're permanently behind the scenes to be able to do that driver search.
Well, it should give you some idea what the device is, so you
It
should.
doesn't tell you. I can't identify what's not there. I went through Device Manager. I went through lots of different places to try and search it down. I went to ChatGPT, or excuse me, Copilot, and it gave me some answers to do those searches to be able to do those repair items. But in the end, the only thing it said is maybe if your .NET service isn't running, that could be a limitation.
Yeah.
I don't know how to turn that on again.
There's also the
And find where it's in the system.
There's also a possibility, and I've seen this on my systems frequently, that sometimes there is an outstanding .NET that hasn't been installed on your system that can hang you.
Well, I get updates for .NET.
I know, I did that too, but I have another tool that I used and found out, oh yeah, you have a missing .NET update missing, and it will automatically download and install it for me.
Well, I didn't see where on my system it doesn't show that app anywhere. It doesn't show when I went to Access, it didn't show that there was an update from there.
I have two other systems here. One's an HP Mini and the other one is an Optiplex Mini. I upgraded those both successfully with no hitches to 25H2. But
Well, I understand, but so there's something, a device driver missing somewhere, but identifying it is a trickier thing.
yes, I have had situations where it goes through the whole process and gets to like 98, 99% and then fails. But most of the time, that's critical files in the boot process being corrupt, or other files that may be needing to be updated are corrupt. And you have to go through a combination of SFC space /
Which I
scan
did all
now and the DISM
I did that.
restore health, and you have to also go do a check disk of your C
I
drive,
did that.
and
And
that,
it gets to 100% and then stops in the install.
it's still it could be just a missing driver, but you're going to have to possibly get it from the outside. Now, in your case, you have an HP system, correct?
Correct.
All right. Then for that, you need to go online to HP, go to desktop systems, ask for support services, identify your exact machine, and you want to look for drivers. And maybe
I've been there. There's nothing there for me.
they also have an automatic scan that you can try
I've
out.
been there.
Okay. I can't answer your question because every time I've come up with problems, it has been some kind of corruption on the computer or a .NET not installed that needed to be there.
So my question is really, how do you trust these driver update services?
I take all the updates through Windows Update because Microsoft has those submitted from the hardware manufacturers. They review them for some kind of compliance before they pass them on to the individuals. It
Well,
doesn't
that's what I
mean-
always do too, but
Well, you can have a problem where they're trying to put on a newer version of a driver your hardware no longer supports. That can happen.
I understand. But, so I've been reluctant to let the driver service sort of embed itself in my system to be able to search for missing drivers.
Well, the only other option I know of, and they're getting out of the business, so to speak, is Intel has a lot of stuff, and it also comes through Windows Update. And one of them is for checking your drivers to make sure that all of them are up to date.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Bob?
Two things on this. One, the updates in Windows Update that you're concerned with are optional updates. This is one of the few times when you need to check to see if there are any optional updates. Drivers will often show up there.
That is
I've
correct.
been there.
Second, even if all the drivers got installed or there were drivers, run Windows Update again and search for optional updates until no drivers show up.
Several times I've tried.
Third, Intel Driver and Support Assistant is not going away. It's still possible if you have Intel drivers. But what brand is your computer?
It's an HP.
HP may have some kind of way of searching automatically for drivers that are appropriate to your system.
Yeah, I've been there, but nothing happened.
See whether there's anything newer than the last time you checked. And you may have done this already.
I have, but thank you.
So the other things that I would suggest would be for most people pretty risky.
Yeah, I've occasionally used other pieces of software, third-party software that update drivers. The bad part, the majority of them want money. Well, I don't use those. I use the free ones, and there aren't too many of those. But at least I seldom come across a driver issue, except right now on my real old computers that I'm trying to rehab. I now have at least 3 drivers MIA. So I'm going to have to do some hunting to try and find a source of drivers for whatever it's looking for.
Well, at least Copilot did give me some answers to check things out. So that's good.
Usually you'll get some kind of response, and especially since it's a Windows problem that you're having, it's best to start off with Copilot. But you should also try some of the other AI engines like Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude is another one. Sometimes you get surprises and they've got some additional piece of information that might solve your issue.
Well, I was happy with the response I got.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else got any questions, issues of some kind, problems to solve that hopefully are easier than Burt's problem? Hearing none, I'll proceed then with the special little presentation I'm going to try and do. I got a Windows 10 system here, but remember, pass this information on to other people that may be stuck on 10 for whatever reason. They don't want to go to 11. Let's see here. I want to go to share. All right, now get rid of that. And we're going to see if I can, oh, bears. Well, moved it a little bit. All right. Now, okay. I'm going to first open this up to edit mode. This is, I did this per a video, okay? And I'm a person who is not afraid to use the regedit. I've been tinkering with regedit for 25, 30 years now, so I'm quite comfortable with it. Most people are not. The slightest mistake could lock up your system. So I made the key entries necessary, and then I exported the key, because that's what this is. This is a new key to add into the registry, and it has 2 values. One is ESU eligibility, and one is ESU eligibility result. And both are, the eligibility is set to a value of 2, and the result is set to a value of 1. I'm just showing you this. You don't need to know the details, other than some people would hesitate doing anything with it. So the next thing you would do is I would put this in the chat. You would download it, and depending on whether you have other people to give this to, that you'd put it on a flash drive, or people that have multiple machines like I do, it would be best to have it on a USB drive. Otherwise, if you only got one machine, you're only going to need this one time, and that's it. And you double click it. It asks, do you want to do this, basically. I'm saying yes. I'm in the administrator's account. You have to do this from the administrator's account. Then it gives you a warning here. Adding information unintentionally change or delete values and can cause problems, basically, of maybe your system not working right, or even not working at all. I've done this several times already. So all you do is say yes, go ahead. Next message, it did it. It's all done. So the next thing I want to do, come down to the start button, go to settings. I want to go down to update and security. And this is what you get right here, where my cursor is at. Odds are you don't see this right now if you check it out in a user account or an administrator account. So this is what that key did to this machine. It gave me the ability to now, I can learn about the end of support if I don't already know a fair amount about it. And then I can do an enroll now, which I'll click on. Now, the one thing this requires is to log in to the name and password of your Microsoft attached account. Remember, this is local. It has no Microsoft attached account. That's why it's asking for it. And so you would have to possibly sign in. It varies machine to machine. This machine has a Microsoft account already. It knows that it exists. Therefore, it's not asking me to sign in. So Dennis's situation, hopefully it'll work out the same, but it might ask you to log in with the Microsoft account you create. Then you go next. Now it's asking for the sign in, and I'm not going to go that far in this. I went a little bit further than I wanted to. But generally speaking, it gives you then, after you log in, options of how to do your enrollment. Are you paying the $30? Are you going to take and do a backup to OneDrive? Now, on that, when you set that up, you only want to do your individual hang on a minute here. I got somebody coming in. Anything that you do, generally speaking, is going to be to try and give them only your settings of Windows. This is all your changes, your configurations, how you change things around, etc., on your system. And that's all you want to back up. No data files or folders. You got to remember, there's only 5 gigabytes of space that Microsoft is giving you. And for most people, that's never going to hold even the operating system and nothing else. So you got to be careful when you say leave it back up everything. And if you do that, then you're going to get a message from Microsoft saying you need more storage. This is how much it's going to cost at minimum to keep your whole backup going. Otherwise, you get truncated, so to speak. So be careful what you do with the backup. Just limit it to your computer's settings and you'll be absolutely fine. On this system, I'm not going to do the ESU because I'm going to be upgrading this to Windows 11 unsupported. Any questions or issues? It's really a straightforward process to get the ESU if you haven't seen it already. So, a lot of people got the ESUs before October the 14th. I never did. And on the 14th, that's when I got this information, created the registry key, populated it on a couple other systems as well, and got the ESU support for 3 machines. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this and bring up my notes again. Okay, now if come on. All right. Now, I'm going to get into my more normal stuff. At least I hope so. And oh, so. Now, to screen here. Okay, I got an article here that might be of interest to some. I optimized Windows search to find any PC file in a flash, and here's how to unlock faster, more accurate file searches. And I got to get rid of a message here. Oh boy. And now every search for a file in Windows and come up empty. I have. Or waited way too long for results. I've seen some sit there for many minutes before anything showed up. You're not alone. Many users find Windows search frustrating, and it really boils down to its default settings. By default, Windows only indexes certain locations like the desktop and the documents, pictures, music, libraries, and under My Documents. If you organize your files differently, you might be left waiting or not finding anything at all. And I want to point out there that I have seen on the internet, at least one professional person saying he does not use the default Windows locations for documents, pictures, video, music, etc. Instead, he changes it to a different location, possibly even on a different drive, and stores all of his stuff where neither the Windows backup will back up to the cloud account anything that might be considered very private. So this is where you would end up with potentially nothing. Another quirk of Windows is that the search results can vary depending upon where you start the search. Whether you're using the Start menu, File Explorer, or the taskbar, each one can produce different results, which I've never noticed offhand, but I can understand it. So here's how he's perfectly configured desktop search, and he goes into the details of how to change the default settings for the searches to do it more expeditiously and more accurately. And this is something that probably few, if any, people ever look at configurations of the applications on their system. And it's not just the ones Microsoft provides, but also third-party software the user installs on their computer. You've got to look at the settings, because in the settings you may find features you want to have, but they were turned off by the developer of the software to reduce the amount of problems that could arise on individual systems that require people to contact the developer of the software to try and help straighten the user out and get them out of trouble. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Anybody got any comments on that? Not hearing any. Go on to the next one. 4 features. 4 features I always disable to improve privacy on Windows. This is another article. Diagnostic and feedback telemetry is one that he will reduce or completely shut off. That means that Windows itself might not be able to help you, but they've changed that whole process. The troubleshooters no longer do their own diagnostic and give you suggested changes. They instead go to an AI, now run by Copilot, to try and figure out what your problem might be and who knows what else it's doing. So you have to make your own decisions. The second thing that he does, disable your advertising ID. I've done that for 25, 30 years. I turn that stuff off. It stops advertisers from getting an ID that Microsoft would provide them that ties back to your actual name. So for a lot of the websites you go to with no advertiser ID that says who you are, they know still everything about your machine, your browsers that you use, what your habits are of what you look for out on the internet, and that gives an ID profile of you. Even if they don't know your name whatsoever, where you are located at, I also turn off the accurate location information. I only let them use either Wi-Fi or Ethernet to get an approximate location. And that's good enough as far as I'm concerned. You have blocked app permissions. And this pertains to all apps from the Microsoft Store in particular, but it also includes third-party software may desire to have your location information as accurate as it can get, camera and microphone content. They may have other things they also want. So you have to go through each of your programs' information inside of Windows operating system under settings, applications, and find out what kind of information they're looking for. And you can restrict that information from being available to them. It's up to you, not some fairy coming in the night like the Tooth Fairy, putting a dollar under your pillow for a tooth that fell out or got knocked out. Another one here is disable location data and improve privacy on Windows. Like I said, they have an accurate pinpoint with location turned on. If you turn it off, they still know your approximate location unless you're using a VPN also. If you're using a VPN, it'll be wherever the server is that is the given location, and they may know that it's a VPN and may have ways of getting to your real IP address from your ISP provider. So don't take it too personal. You cut off what you can and at least improve your privacy. Anybody got any further questions or comments on this article? Bob?
There are also third-party apps which consolidate a lot of this privacy stuff. One of my favorites is O&O Shutup 10, which includes the 4 you mentioned and many, many others.
Yes.
And they have ratings as to how safe or what kind of impact their settings will have.
Right.
Green, yellow, or red.
Another one is WinArrow. That's one I use, and it allows me to adjust a lot of different settings, very much like O&O Shutup does. So it gives you additional protections, but you shouldn't rely upon those third-party ones. You should go through and change your operating system applications to make sure that is taken care of. Now, I want to add at this point one additional thing. In Windows 10, you had under privacy and security background processing. And I always, on all my Windows 10 and prior, turned that completely off until I found there were a few settings I did want and need to have turned on. So then I would turn on the privacy settings again and individually turn off everything except the ones I wanted to keep. Microsoft Store was one, settings is another one, and the rest generally are turned off unless you have a laptop or other device driver in the listing. You may need to keep those on for those to function correctly. Now, in 11, you don't get that right anymore. Instead, what you have to do is go through the apps installed apps on your system. You click the 3 buttons and see if it has an advanced option. If it does, click that. In the displayed advanced options for that application, you may see it set to a recommended setting that optimizes things. You can click on that setting and change it to never, and it will not run in background. But you got to do that for each one. The bad part is when you get past the first page of applications that you're checking out, every time you get done with an application's setting changes, it goes back to the top of the list. And so as you go down the list, you're having to go over, scrolling through a long list to get to whatever the next entry was supposed to be done. And I find that an irritation. They're trying to make it unpalatable for most people to go through and turn off unnecessary background apps running when they are not the focal program. And that sucks up your computer memory. It sucks up CPU time, and sometimes it will also affect the GPU in your system. So it's best to turn off background processing for almost everything in your system that it will allow you to. You may also notice, for especially Microsoft applications, an uninstall feature, such as like the 3D printer as an example. If you don't have a 3D printer, why have that installed? You can click on uninstall and it will remove the program. But you have to do that for each account. And otherwise, it keeps Microsoft in updates will keep putting that back into your system for all accounts. When it's out of all your accounts, then it usually will be off the system, and only on rare occasions like an upgrade would you see that program come back. You have to really keep an eye on them every month when you get your updates. Next up, 4 word features you're not using but should be. Now, not everybody uses Word, but even some of these ideas can get into other programs. So basically, he's gone through a list here. Insert, how to do screenshots, how to make available Windows sections. Pardon me. Running apps on your computer, screen clipping. What do you want to clip specifically, and what do you want to do with it, so to speak. So, and there's also using styles in Word. This applies to a lot of third-party suite applications like LibreOffice and OnlyOffice, just to name 2 of them. And this gets into getting into the settings of your applications you install on your system to get the most out of your computer and those applications at all times. And from time to time, you need to review those settings, because you may have changed some things, and maybe you've got to add some new settings, or take off some existing settings that irritate you, and you want to get rid of the irritation. Burt?
Okay. A couple of things. In the latest versions of a Word, it has kind of Copilot hanging in there every time you go to type something in. So you just ignore the icon there, or you can have Copilot help you write it. The other thing that's changed lately is apparently they're now switching it so Word documents automatically get saved in OneDrive. And that's a new thing that's either here or coming shortly.
Yes, particularly those who have upgraded to 25H2, more and more, their Microsoft is going to try and force all your documents into OneDrive. But there's a switch for the time being. You can go in settings, search for, I forget what it was now. There's a switch in there to turn off OneDrive storing your documents. And basically speaking, that can be turned off. And you can then go into OneDrive for any documents that it already has saved to it. And you can download those back to your local drive if that's your desire. So this is a choice. You're the owner, you're the administrator, you have to make the choice. But if you don't examine things or you don't get into meetings like this, etc., you're on your own to figure out some of these issues. But a lot of people, and I have to watch myself, on some machines I have the setting on to back up, and I forget about it. I'm looking for it on my local drive. But I also, even though that's turned on, I have the ability on individual documents to save it instead to my local drive, so it's on both. Burt?
One of the other things to keep in mind is when you make a document and it has the automatic save, that of course is every time you make a change, it's automatically resaved to OneDrive. And I think that the concept of making sure everything in OneDrive is because that's going to let the AI understand what different documents you have and what you're trying to get done in the future.
That may be absolutely true on the AI, but a lot of people don't like using the cloud and trust the cloud, let alone trust the AI to begin with. So there's a lot of people that are going to say no and no to both issues.
That's okay, but if the automatic save is on, then keep in mind it writes over your previous version. And there may be ways to recover the previous versions, but sometimes when we start a new document, you have to remember to save it as another name so you don't write over the previous thing.
Right, that's true. Especially if you want versioning. If you want versioning between document 1 and document 2, then you have to have some kind of a slight change in the file name to distinguish first version, second version, third version, fourth version, etc., etc. And when you get to the final document, you may or may not want to keep the old versions, and you might want to delete them and recapture the space, or you keep them for bits and pieces that you might use in some other documents that you create in the future. Now here's another one. Right up the alley. I've been avoiding Copilot for years, but find these features actually useful. And that's the thing. Until you experiment a bit with anything new, whether it's cloud storage with OneDrive or Google Drive, Proton Drive, etc., you don't know what you like or dislike about it. And this is true with when you get into things like AI. You have Copilot, you got Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT and many, many others, including Perplexity. And until you at least try them out and see what results you get back, things have changed over time. The accuracy of the AIs are all getting much better, much less hallucination than in the early days of the AI clients. But you don't need necessarily, if you look at my desktop down there, the bar at the bottom of the shared window, I have Copilot app. That's right down, oops, wrong one. That's this one right here. That's the Copilot app. You don't necessarily need that. Even Linux users can use AI clients simply by opening any browser, opening up a tab, and typing in the URL for each of the clients, like Copilot with no hyphen, .microsoft.com, or Gemini.google.com, or Claude, CLAUDE.ai, Perplexity.ai, etc. And ChatGPT, I don't remember if it's .com or .ai. At any rate, you can go put those values in any tab in any browser and get a chat going with an AI and not necessarily have an app, or using Edge browser, which has the AI Copilot chat built into it. So there are ways of still using AI and not use Edge and not use the Copilot app if it's on your system. But if you got a Copilot plus PC, you have a network, a neural processing unit inside the CPU chip. And this is for added local horsepower to do your chats with. And for that, you might as well have the app installed and use it also. But some of them, the AI clients do give you the ability to download an app for their AI client. Not all of them, but some do. You got compose emails, draft in an Outlook. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to have Microsoft 365 for Outlook. You can have Outlook.com email account and use AI to compose and draft your emails. And they can make a big difference in the readability and spelling and grammar as well. So if you're not great at spelling, you're not great at grammar, the AIs can give you a lot of extra oomph to your communiques. Same for if you're creating a letter. So rewrite text in Word. That's basically what we're talking about here as another option. You're trying to create a document that may be used somewhere. Maybe it's a letter to your doctor. I've known one person that actually does that, or did that until they passed away. And basically speaking, you write up what you want to say. You do a complete highlight of the text, kind of like that. And you would then do a copy by a right click, copy that into the clipboard, and then bring up an AI client and start with the words like revise and correct the following, put a comma or a colon or a semicolon and one space, and then do a paste of this text into the AI client, hit the enter key, and it will look at it, review it, and offer up changes. Now, you don't accept the changes as is without you reading through it and making some maybe other minor adjustments. I've occasionally had to do that myself. So generally speaking, it will do a much better job and give you a better way of saying exactly what you want to say, but not lose people saying, I'm tired of reading whatever this is. And they stop reading it. And then image searches. This has been around for a little while. People use this very much on their smartphones, whether you got an iPhone or you got an Android. And image searches, you can take a picture of something that has caught your eye, and you'd like to know more about what it is and what it might be useful for. And you can have that image analyzed. It'll know exactly what it is and give you some information about it. And you can always ask follow-up questions to any inquiry. Once you start an inquiry with an AI client, one results come back, that's not necessarily the end of it. If you want additional changes or additional information, you don't think what it responded with is accurately solving your problem that you're trying to solve, you keep on going with that same chat level, and it remembers what it already told you, and you should, in the continuation, say, I checked out the following, and I either got no results, incorrect results, etc., etc. You give the AI client feedback. It learns from that feedback and does a better job the next time around. And this also helps out other people using the same AI client. So there's a lot of useful, productive, fun things that you can do with an AI client, and it's not a joke. PowerPoint. Now, I'm lousy on PowerPoint, and I have made a few PowerPoints. They take up too much of my time. Is part of the reason why I don't use PowerPoints much myself. However, in more recent times, they now have the AIs capable of literally taking the basic information you want in a PowerPoint and making the PowerPoint for you, sometimes with pictures and graphs that you provide also. This gives you a leg up. You just have to know the material you want to present, any pictures, graphs, etc. Give it all to the AI, and it gives you back the final product. And I take that tongue-in-cheek. It's the final product for what you gave it. You have to go through every bit of it to check and make sure that it says what you want to get across. And if it's got too many corrections or omissions, etc., you may figure out what you needed to originally have included in your creation of the PowerPoint that you didn't think of. at least at that point in time. And then you can give that information and have the AI give you a new adjusted PowerPoint. And you keep doing that until you're absolutely happy and satisfied with the PowerPoint that was created by the AI client. So it's a powerful tool. Too many people are saying, I don't like AI, and most of it is they don't really know all of what's going on. They only know some bad things, and they don't know the good things. You got to check all of it out to try and make sure you're comfortable with using the AIs. All right. Now, thanks to Power Toys and keyboard shortcuts, I control my Windows PC faster than with a mouse. That kind of funny to me, and there's a reason for that. Being in Linux also, for a while now, they have had a new thing called tiling windows. And the function of tiling windows is to keep your hands on the keyboard and use the mouse or touchpad very, very sparingly. And for some people, it works. But you got to remember a lot of commands, keyboard shortcuts, in order to be fluent in tiling windows. And it's something you have to see to truly understand what it is. I've got a couple of such ones, and I just learned of another one that has the ability to switch back and forth between normal operations and tiling windows. But it's right now in beta. Looks pretty good. But we'll have to wait and see, probably a later beta or the final product to start looking closer at that. So this gives you an idea of tiling windows, but you don't use the mouse to move these things around. You use control shortcuts. And you put in the shortcut keys on the keyboard and manipulate those windows around, close the ones you don't want anymore, open up new ones, etc., etc. And you can actually stack these things so you got maybe 1/2 of the screen or 1/3 of the screen with one major application, and the rest of the screen is several smaller windows that you are really monitoring, or you are trying to cut and paste something from one window to another window. So it depends upon what you're doing. It's really something. But this is kind of an attempt to give you tiling windows through Power Toys, and possibly enhance your overall productivity with your computer. Basic Windows, no matter how sophisticated it is now and what it's going to be down the road, covers everything. And there are already people clamoring to get some of the Power Toys moved in as features to Windows. Don't know if that's ever going to happen. Until it does, the Power Toys can be downloaded. We are close to version 1. And I think it's 90.94 or 0.96. I'm trying to remember the number off the top of my head. And so there's a good possibility before the end of the year we could end up with version 1, basically starting the new year. And there's a lot of very, very useful toys in Power Toys that give you some real muscle in doing things that otherwise are not part of your Windows environment. And one of them has to do with a toy in there that allows you to set up zones to take your desktop icons like I have showing here and group them into zones on your desktop, similar to a product that was called Fences. Next up. Now this is another one. It's a power toy. It's finally ending the frustration you've learned to live with, and that is tools that aren't part of Windows that give you the ability to do things better and easier than what you would have to try and learn to do in Windows natively. So installing Power Tools boosts your productivity. Microsoft is planning to add some handy new features to the next Power Toys update upcoming. And by the way, Power Toys is made by employees of Microsoft. So in a sense, Microsoft is creating this for some reason as a extra feature that doesn't come with your regular Windows installation. And upcoming toy updates may include a search feature in settings and changes to the shutdown buttons. Now that one you have to read. I forget what they originally said. Here's another one. This is a cheat sheet for what Power Toys has in it when this was created. Mind you, this was created August 21st, 2025. So anything that changed or is new to Power Toys is not in this cheat sheet. Hopefully they'll be making updated cheat sheets to help you out. So there's lots of categories of tools in here, and this is a list as of August 21st of what's out there. And some of the names really give you a reasonably accurate idea of what it is. Fancy zones is like the zones I just previously mentioned in the prior article. So that's one of them. And Text Extractor does a good job, though there are other programs, including Snip and Sketch has a OCR feature within it in 11. It does not exist in 10. Drop dead. Now, how to find your saved Wi-Fi passwords in just seconds. This one can be scary. Basically speaking, you can't remember your passwords. There's a good chance that Windows already knows your Wi-Fi password and you can find it, get the information, and write it down somewhere again, or however you keep track of that information. I've used it so much, it's memorized. I don't have to worry about writing it down somewhere. So that's the long of that one. 12 tweaks to make your Windows PC lean, mean, and fast. Well, let's say a little leaner, a little meaner, a little faster. To get it really lean, mean, and fast, there are a lot of third-party scripts that will take a new ISO image, remove a lot of the crud, but then you are expected to do a clean install of that ISO on a system. Sometimes you can get away with murder and do an in-place upgrade to keep what third-party programs, your settings, and other data on the system while changing to a leaner, meaner version of Windows. There are a couple that I have not had time to experiment with that take a live system and de-bloat and optimize the Windows operating system. And there's a lot of tools that give you granular ability to eliminate items in Windows you know you're never going to touch if that's your desire. That gives you back space on your storage. That gives you a slightly leaner, meaner, faster machine just doing that a few times. And depending on your system, if you got a high horsepower system, you're going to notice very, very little. If you got a medium capable system, you're going to notice it some. This becomes very effective for low-end PCs that a lot of people tend to buy because they have limited budgets. So you have to take into account a lot of things as to how quickly you can get things done. One thing people don't understand is Windows in its operations, in creating files, in deleting files, and so on and so forth, it creates a lot of temporary files, and it does a lousy job getting rid of the temporary files when they are no longer of any value. The best way for most people, especially the low-end users, is to download from Microsoft Store PC Manager. This gives you a lot of capability of cleaning out a lot of cumulative junk. This does not include your real files that you create that are obsolete to you anymore, and you've never gotten rid of them or taken them off your main drive and putting them on an external drive. This is very important in videos, pictures, and to some degree in music. Stuff you're not using right now and needing in the immediate future, you need to move off to a separate external drive and keep it off your main system until you need it. Then you can move it back, do whatever you want to do with it, and when you're really done with it, you can move it back to the external drive with all the changes. So that's another factor. Delete search index and remove update buffer. This is a little more advanced. As you can see, it gets into the command line, which a lot of people want to avoid, like the Black Plague. Unfortunately, that's where most of the real power really is. But basically, Microsoft Search, if you haven't gone through the search and changed your settings to improve its responsiveness, then this is the other option. You disable the search indexing in services, and you get rid of the index file that it has created on your system to get back storage space. It gives you also a boost in performance by doing all that. Compressing system files. This one I'd be very cautious about using, though if you got a medium or high-end system, you probably won't notice it. Basically, it's like taking the valve out of a bicycle tire or a car tire and watching it deflate down to a flat tire. And what you have left is a wheel. It's still there in place, but until you put the valve back in and put in new air, it just stays flat. And this compresses files of anywhere on your system, really. You can create compact folders so that it can squeeze out things. If you got a lot of document folders, a lot of that can end up having a lot of empty space in it, and making that a compact folder might save you some space on your drive that you can use for other things. And then you got 11 without ballast, using Tiny 11 correctly. This is for more advanced people. Most of the time, Tiny 11 is used for unsupported equipment that cannot be upgraded to 11 normally. So if you're not a real efficient person at doing things, this is one I think you can skip. When you till, this is for the advanced people. This is to selectively go through and debloat your running system on a case-by-case basis. And it gives optimization. It gives you a section that allows you to add new software to your system as another way of getting stuff on your system that comes straight from the developers. Even more radical, Tiny Core. Again, I would skip that for most people. Windows 10 XPE and PE Bakery. This is something, if you can handle it, should be looked into. This will allow you to be able to create bootable flash drives with a Windows PE environment, and then you can put Windows software on there, and whether your Windows installed system is running or not, you can boot off of this bootable flash drive and run these other tools. Maybe there are tools that you don't want to actually install in your main system, but in this flash drive, you can have the same tools and run them from there. Reinstall Windows without ballast legally. That's true, but again, I would say the majority of Windows users, it's not probably for you unless you really start getting into the nitty-gritty of the operating system, etc. I'd avoid it. So those are some ideas this person had. Here's a couple more in here. Windows 11 is making it easier to transfer data to a new PC. This was brought up by Ron in his 6-part series, how to transfer your data to the new machine. Copilot on Windows 11 has a new home UI. It feels like a smart menu for AI. I'll let you read that. This is something I wanted to get into, and that's why I skipped those couple, because it's getting late. And come on. I've got several videos here for seniors. You just got to get through the ads. I haven't set up ad guard. I did buy a lifetime subscription, but I haven't had time to mess with it. Got a setting missing, and sorry about that.
Into a chat and just say, please explain this. And you can keep asking follow-up questions. Greetings. Today, I'm going to be talking about how ChatGPT can make your life easier. Not perfect, but easier. And so I have a slide presentation, and it's available without narration, so you can look it up later if you'd like to copy the slides. But I'd like to go over it and show you all of the great ways that ChatGPT can make your life easier and a lot more fun. So I'm going to share my screen, and here we are. So one thing it can do is you can ask chat things and get clear answers. I can't tell you how many times I've gone in and I've said, chat, it says this. I've done a snapshot, pasted it in, and I go, I don't understand what they're talking about. And chat will explain it to me. And that's with no tech. And this is terrific if you're looking up medical terms. What does this mean? What does this disease mean? What is this vitamin for? Or you have confusing documents. You don't understand them. You can copy and paste or just into a chat and just say, please explain this. And you can keep asking follow-up questions until you understand it. But you understand. There's no pressure. There's no rolling of eyes. There's no saying, oh my God, she doesn't understand. That's how you can do it. So, great. 2, you can write and edit like a pro. You can do emails, you can do letters, you can do bios, you can do resumes. You can hit the record button, the little microphone on chat, and dictate into it whatever you want and say, please write a letter for me. Or if you need a resume, you can tell it all about yourself and say, please do a resume, and chat will do it. And then you can modify it, you can copy and paste it and put it into Word, or you can put it into OneNote or Evernote or something, play with it. Upload it again, copy and paste it until you get it just right for you. It can write social posts. Please post this to Facebook. Please let them know I'm doing this. Please help me. It can help you with captions. If you want, and you're going to have fun, it will write stories for you. So for example, if you're doing memories, you're going to be telling about your life, you can dictate into chat, and chat will write a story for you about it. I have a friend who has a child, and she has a special needs child, and she's written a book using chat and, playing with it back and forth to get it just right, but it put it into very readable form. And it will also fix grammar, tone, reformatting, also sorts of things like that. It will write letters for you. Say you have a letter that you want to send, getting money back from somebody. A company that you need to return something to, or you need to straighten out. Chat can help you write that letter. And also, I'll tell you the truth, sometimes I get annoyed at somebody and I write a little bit of a hot letter, and I've copied it and pasted it into chat and say, please give me some guidance. And chat will come back and say, Joanna, this is a little bit harsh. Maybe you could tone down a bit. Maybe you could reword it. Maybe you can understand where this person is coming from. And it has saved me a lot of grief. So it's really terrific for that. Plan smarter. You can build itineraries. Say you want to take a vacation and you don't want to use any of the expressways. You'd like to go to small towns. You don't want to travel any more than 6 hours a day. You want to get from this place to that place. Tell chat what you need, and chat will plan it for you. Or maybe you're planning a birthday, a surprise party, maybe a baby shower. Tell chat what you want. It will give you ideas. It will create checklists for your home projects on when things can be done. That's kind of cool. And it will organize, I have all these things to do. Can you make sense out of these and tell me what I should do and when I should do it? That's good if you can And chat may come back and say, well, tell me how much time everything is going to take and tell me what's a priority. But it can help you do that and prepare a to-do list. Now, before I go any further, I want to tell you that I am going to do a video on each one of these topics and show you how you can ask questions and dig deeper and really get what you need out of chat. So this is just an overview of the questions that you can ask. Learn new things and research the old. Oh, this is really, really terrific. For any of you that are history buffs, you will love this thing. I went in just to explore it and said, please tell me how the Revolutionary War started. Who fired the first shot? And it gave me everything. Please tell me more. Please tell me this. Also, I asked it to state the sources, and it even gave me a map of where everything started. It's cool. It's really, really cool. We'll be covering that in a separate video later. You can check out current events, including bills before Congress. So they saw, oh, we have this bill before Congress or your state legislature. During the legislative session, if there was a bill that I was interested in, I'd say, chat, please give me a summary of this bill and where it stands, and there it would be. So that's really cool. And you can keep asking questions until you understand what's happening. Keep digging deeper and deeper. Okay, solve problems. Chat is great for brainstorming. I have this problem, I don't know how to solve it. Or my computer's broken, I don't know what to do. Or I need a new computer and I don't know which one to buy. Or I need this. It can research for you, help you brainstorm things, weigh the pros and cons, and give you a chart with the pros and cons so that you can make a decision. That's just terrific. It's like getting a second opinion or a fresh perspective from somebody that doesn't have, isn't so close to you that they want to flatter you or they want to persuade you one way or another. It's unbiased. That's one of the nice things about it. I can tell you that when I create these videos, I do a lot of brainstorming with chat. What would be interesting? What wouldn't be interesting? It even helps me design my slides. It's terrific. We'll help you use tech more easily. Oh, we all get...
Now I'm going to stop her there because of time. I want to go to a couple other ones. This is in the handout, so you'll be able to play it to your heart's content. There's another one here. Do you know how to work your phone? Chat can help. So that one there can help you out with your phone and its features, etc. Windows 11 versus 10. What's the real differences? This one is not like for the seniors, but for anybody.
Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for AskLeo.com. This might seem like a really odd question to ask right now. After all, Windows 11 has been out for, several years now. However, with the impending end of Windows 10 support, and with its still large installed base, and with Windows 11 being a somewhat moving target, the question is actually more relevant than ever. If you've got Windows 10 and are considering Windows 11, what's the difference? Let's compare and contrast and complain just a little. Now, I do want to point out that this isn't going to be a really deep technical explanation of the differences between the two operating systems. There are plenty of places for that, and honestly, the average user, the average consumer, the average Windows user, you don't care about any of that. You don't need to know any of that. So, with that little caveat out of the way, let's talk about what I've referred to as the elephant in the motherboard, the hardware requirement. By far, the most controversial difference is Windows 11's new security-related hardware requirements. That includes Trusted Platform Module version 2, TPM, a UEFI, Secure Boot Capable, which replaces a traditional BIOS that we've used in previous machines, and a compatible 64-bit processor. So some other baseline requirements have changed as well. There's no 32-bit version. Minimum RAM requirements have increased from 2 to 4 gigabytes. Minimum disk space has increased from 20 gigabytes to 64 gigabytes. DirectX 12 graphics device driver software is required. It was previously DirectX 9. And the minimum screen resolution is now 1280 by 720, which is an increase from the old 800 by 600. Now, this latter set of other baseline requirements, that kind of a change is actually pretty traditional from one version of Windows to another, heck, one version of an operating system to another. It's the restrictions imposed by that first list, however, most specifically the CPU requirement and the TPM requirement, that has generated a fair amount of controversy since they actually preclude many existing older machines from running Windows 11. All right, once you fire up Windows 11 for the first time, you'll notice that it looks a little different. Another controversial, though perhaps less impactful change, is that the Start menu is, by default, in the middle of the taskbar. Now, you can move it to the left if you want to, but the taskbar itself can't be placed anywhere other than the bottom. Unlike Windows 10 and previous versions, where you could stick it to the side, the bottom, the top, the left, the right, wherever you wanted. Can't do that anymore. There are also a number of what I would refer to as traditional changes, the kinds of things that change with every Windows version. For example, there's some cosmetic changes. Rounded corners are back, apparently. Softer colors, new animations, transparency effects, and so forth. Now, there are a selection of other differences that I've culled from the Microsoft Windows 11 specifications page. Again, I've culled them to focus on the kinds of things that an average user, a real person, might notice or potentially even care about. For example, Cortana, the app, is gone. Actually, she's been gone for a while. Microsoft Edge with IE mode replaces Internet Explorer 11. Mail, Calendar, and People have been replaced with the new Outlook. S mode is only available for Windows Home Edition. Honestly, I'd avoid S mode anyway. Windows 11 does not support disabling the return of internet search results when you search. Named groups and folders of apps are no longer supported in the Start menu, and the layout of the Start menu is not resizable. In that same vein, live tiles, things that you could put in the Start menu that would do things, they're gone. Tablet mode is gone. The wallet is removed. The Mixed Reality Portal app, the Windows Mixed Reality for Steam VR and Steam VR Beta, all gone. WordPad is removed. This one kind of hurts. Widgets are added. Passkeys are added natively to Windows Hello. There are security additions, such as what I would refer to as reputation-based installation blocks. Microsoft calls it Smart Screen. They've been added or improved. And application interfaces have some changes, the most notable being that Windows File Explorer has a new look and feel to it. Snipping tool has kind of changed and consumed some of the other snip-related tools, and so forth. The full list is somewhat longer and occasionally very esoteric, but you can find it on the Microsoft website. The article for this video will have links to exactly that. The items above, like I said, they represent what I feel most average users might actually notice or care about. Now, under the hood, there are many changes under the hood that don't necessarily change how you see or interact with Windows 11, but rather they are intended to perform its overall performance and or security. Many of these changes, interestingly enough, are positioned specifically as relating to gaming, gaming interaction, and gaming performance. It's unclear whether the improvement impacts non-gaming activities. My expectation is that while some might, many will not. I will tell you that my experience using both Windows 10 and Windows 11, performance appears similar for non-gaming tasks. Other changes like so-called virtualization-based security, kernel DMA protection, and others do represent additional security protections. I've also seen claims that Windows 11 has made an assortment of changes to improve both boot time and the performance of applications currently being used. In other words, what we would call your foreground applications. Much like the gaming improvements, it's unclear if these improvements are things you'll even notice. I haven't. Now, there's a set of complaints that get bundled into complaining about Windows 11, but they're not really Windows. Certainly, they're from Microsoft, and they might be interwoven into Windows, maybe even more tightly than we want, but they are separate from Windows. By those, I mean OneDrive, Edge, Office, Office 365, Microsoft 365, Microsoft 365 Copilot, whatever they call it next week, Outlook and Outlook New, Copilot itself, though this integration is actually getting tighter every day, so the line here is definitely blurring, particularly with what are called Copilot Plus PCs. What happens to this set of features, though, is independent of Windows itself. What I mean by that is that there's a very good chance you'll experience some of their changes and updates regardless of which version of Windows you're actually running. My take on Windows 11 has been pretty simple from the start. Honestly, it's less a major new version of Windows and just a substantial upgrade. It's something that in years past we might have simply called a service pack. I suspect that the change in hardware requirements, more than anything else, is what drove Microsoft to actually call this Windows 11 rather than something like Windows 10 Service Pack 1. I say that to make this point. Windows 11 isn't that huge a leap from Windows 10. While it looks a little different at times, it's just Windows. And while there are differences to be sure, as long as your machine is capable, the differences are manageable and honestly not really that difficult to get used to. The biggest difference of all might simply be this. While it will certainly keep working, Windows 10 stops being officially supported in October of 2025. While there's no official final end of support date for Windows 11, it's going to be supported for many years to come. I've got a question for you, and I'll ask you to leave this in the comments below. If you're already using Windows 11 after having used Windows 10, which changes did you notice the most? Remember, try and focus on changes in Windows, not OneDrive, not Office, not the other stuff that isn't Windows. Windows itself. What impacted you the most? Obviously, I've selected the changes that I think most people will care about, but your experiences will help other people decide as well. For updates, for comments, for links related to this topic and more.
Okay, on that one there. I do want to mention development of Windows 12 went into hiatus. Some of the changes that are occurring in 24H2 and 25H2 to your systems are getting the foundations laid for what will become Windows 12 in the future. Windows 12, there's speculation, may require a CPU with NPU integrated. And that could possibly, if it's a mandated requirement, keep a lot of people going from 11 to 12, unless they want to go out and buy a new machine. And many already bought 11 compliant machines to begin with. They're not willing to give that up, I don't think. Not the majority of them. Under Intel processors, these are the Ultra Core processors. They have an NPU. AMD has a series very much like Ultra Core Intel chips with an NPU built in. So that's something that may come down the pipe. It's going to be very AI oriented more than what 11 is. So if you're not into AI, or you're refusing to even think about it, your days are numbered on Windows-based systems, and you're going to have to move to Mac, and you don't know what changes are going to take place there on AI, or to Linux. Just thought I'd toss that in. All right. Another one here is Understanding ChatGPT, a friendly guide for seniors. This is another video in this series, and I have how to keep using Windows 10 safely. This is also by Leo. Leo is an ex-Microsoft developer that was an employee of Microsoft. I don't know when he started, but it was a lot of years that he worked there. And I think I remember him saying he retired from Microsoft in 2003. And most of the time to date has been with the creation of Ask Leo to help people with problems and issues. Let's see here. All right. Zoom meeting guide for seniors. There's actually a second one that's by someone else.
Guide for Seniors. I'm Huey Poplock. Welcome everyone to today's comprehensive guide on mastering Zoom's menu bar and AI features. This presentation is specifically designed for senior users who want to become more confident and comfortable using Zoom in their meetings, family calls, and social connections. We'll explore every aspect of Zoom's interface in a clear, step-by-step manner, ensuring you leave with the knowledge and confidence to navigate Zoom like a pro. We'll also introduce you to Zoom's exciting AI companion features that can make your meeting experience even more enjoyable and productive. Here's what we'll cover. First, we'll start with understanding Zoom's interface, where you'll learn how the main window is organized and where to find everything you need. Next, we'll get into the menu bar overview, exploring each button and control in detail. Then we'll cover essential controls, including audio, video, chat, and screen sharing features that you'll use most frequently. After that, we'll introduce you to Zoom's AI companion features, which are revolutionary tools that can summarize meetings, help with chat responses, and make your Zoom experience much more smoother. When you join a Zoom meeting, you'll see an intuitive interface. The main window shows participants' video feeds, while the control toolbar at the bottom lets you manage your microphone, camera, chat, screen sharing, and more. The toolbar may hide after a few seconds, but reappears when you move your mouse, depending upon your settings. The participants list and chat panel may appear on the right or in separate windows. Everything is designed to be just a click away, and we'll explore each feature in detail during this presentation. On the bottom toolbar is your command center in Zoom. On the left are the mute, unmute, and start and stop video buttons, the most used for controlling your mic and camera. The security button, a shield icon, which may also be at the top right of your screen, gives hosts a safety controls. A participants button shows who's in the meeting, and while chat opens a panel for messaging individuals or everyone. Share screen lets you present your screen. Record saves the meeting, and reactions allow quick responses like thumbs up, applause, or raising your hand. Managing audio and video is key to a smooth Zoom experience. The microphone button at the bottom left controls your audio. No line means you're unmuted. A red line means you're muted. Stay muted when not speaking to avoid background noise, and use the arrow for settings like testing your mic or switching devices. The camera button works the same way. No line means your video is on. A red line means it's off. The arrow opens options to test your camera, switch between cameras, and adjust settings like brightness and contrast. The participants panel shows everyone in the meeting, their names, and whether they're muted or on video. You can see who's speaking, who's raised a hand when people join or leave. Chat lets you communicate without interrupting the speaker, send messages to everyone, or privately to individuals. Just click Chat, type in the box, and press Enter. You can also share files with the attachment icon. Keep in mind that the public chat is visible to all, while private messages are only seen by you and the recipient. Screen sharing lets you show photos, documents, or software from your computer. Click Share Screen and choose your whole screen, a specific app, or just part of it. When someone else shares, their content appears in the main window, while participant videos may move aside. Recording is also useful for reviewing later or sharing with absentees. Hosts can start recording with the record button, which captures audio, video, screen sharing, and chat. Recordings are saved either on your computer or in the cloud, depending upon your settings. Zoom gives you several ways to view participants. Speaker's View highlights the active speaker, ideal for presentations. Gallery View shows everyone in a grid, great for social or group meetings. Multi-Speaker View highlights up to 4 people talking at once, while Immersive View places participants in a shared virtual background, like sitting around a table. You can switch views from the View menu in the top toolbar or the options in the top right corner of your meeting window. Zoom's Reaction lets you engage without interrupting. The Reactions button on the bottom toolbar gives you quick emoji options like thumbs up, clapping, or hearts, which appear briefly over your video. The Raise Hand feature signals to the host that you would like to speak, especially helpful in large meetings. You can also rename yourself, add virtual backgrounds, or use appearance filters to enhance video quality. Zoom's AI companion acts like a smart assistant to making meetings smoother. It can generate summaries so you don't need detailed notes, suggest clear chat responses, and provide real-time transcriptions for easier follow along or review. It also learns from your meeting pattern, helpful to prepare by suggesting agenda items and materials based on past discussions. Zoom's AI companion acts like a smart assistant to make meetings smoother. It can generate summaries so you don't need detailed notes, suggest clear chat responses, and provide real-time transaction for easy follow-along or review. It also learns from your meeting patterns, helping you prepare by suggesting agenda items or meetings based on past discussions. Zoom is rolling out new AI that further streamlines meetings. Enhanced transcription aims for more accurate speech to text across accents and languages with clearer and cleaner formatting. Smart Meeting Insights will suggest better meeting times, surface recurring topics, and offer tips to improve effectiveness. Automated assistants will handle scheduling across participants, send follow-up reminders for action items, and suggest the right people for specific discussions. To stay current, keep Zoom updated, and watch in-app notifications, and subscribe to Zoom's newsletter. Security and privacy are paramount when using Zoom, and the platform provides several features to keep your meeting safe and private. While waiting rooms act as a virtual lobby where participants wait before being admitted to the meeting, giving the host control over who joins and when. This prevents uninvited guests from disrupting your meetings. Meeting passwords provide an additional layer of security, requiring participants to enter a password before joining the meeting. These passwords can be automatically included in meeting invitations or shared separately for added security. Host controls give meeting organizers powerful tools to manage their meetings, including the ability to mute and unmute participants, remove disruptive attendees, lock meetings once everyone has joined, and control who can share their screen or use chat features. Privacy best practices includes being cautious about sharing meeting links publicly, using waiting rooms for sensitive meetings, regularly updating your Zoom application to ensure you have the latest security features, and being mindful of what's visible in your background when your camera is on. Even with good technology, issues can arise in Zoom. For audio, if others can't hear you, check that you're unmuted, the right mic is selected, and try rejoining. If you can't hear others, check your volume, connections, and test your audio settings. For video, make sure your camera isn't blocked or in use by another app or outdated, and restart Zoom if needed. For connection problems like poor quality or drops, check your internet speed, close bandwidth heavy apps, move closer to your router, or use a wired connection. Welcome to our exploration of Zoom's More menu, which contains several additional features which can enhance your meeting experience. When you click on the More button, your Zoom toolbar you will discover a variety of useful tools that we'll walk you through today. First, let's discuss the transcript feature. This powerful tool automatically creates a written record of everything said during your meeting. Think of it as having a personal secretary taking notes for you. The transcript appears in real time, making it easier to follow along if you've missed something or need to review what was discussed later. This is particularly helpful for seniors who may want to reference important items and information after the meeting ends. Next, we have polls and quizzes, which are interactive features that meeting hosts can use to engage participants. If you're attending a meeting where the host creates a poll, you'll see questions appear on your screen that you can answer with simple clicks. These might ask for your opinion on a topic or test your understanding of presented material. Don't worry if you see one pop up. They're designed to be user-friendly and optional to participate in. The Docs feature allows you to access and collaborate on documents directly with your Zoom meeting. This means you can view, edit, and comment on shared documents without leaving the meeting window. It's like having a digital workspace where everyone can contribute to the same document simultaneously, making collaboration seamless and efficient. Whiteboard is Zoom's digital drawing and brainstorming tool. Imagine having a large whiteboard where multiple people can write, draw, or add sticky notes at the same time. This feature is excellent for visual learners and creative sessions where ideas need to be sketched out or organized visually. You can use simple drawing tools, add text, or insert shapes to express your ideas. The live stream option allows meeting hosts to broadcast their Zoom session to perform like Facebook Live or YouTube. As a participant, you typically won't need to worry about this feature, but it's good to know that some meetings might be streamed to a wider audience. Hosts will always inform participants when live streaming is active. Meeting info provides you with the essential details about your current session. This includes the meeting ID, dial-in numbers for phone participants, and other technical information you might need. It's particularly useful if you need to help someone else join the meeting or if you want to save the meeting details for future reference. The Reset to Default option is a helpful troubleshoot tool that returns your Zoom toolbar to its original layout. If you accidentally moved buttons around or hidden important features, this option will restore everything to the standard configuration that you're familiar with. Finally, Drag to Reorder toolbar is a customization feature that allows you to rearrange the buttons in your Zoom toolbar according to your preferences. You can move frequently used features closer to the center or hide options you rarely use. However, as you're learning Zoom, I recommend keeping the default layout until you become more comfortable with the features. Remember, these additional features are in the More menu and are designed to enhance your Zoom experience, but they're optional. Focus on mastering the basic controls first, then gradually explore these advanced features as you become more confident with the platform. Congratulations! You've completed this guide to Zoom's menu bar and AI features. Now you know how to manage audio and video, use chat, share screens, record meetings, adjust views, engage with reactions and AI tools. Like any technology, Zoom gets easier with practice, so try features in test meetings or in casual calls. If you run into issues, Zoom's help, resources, tutorials, and support are always available. With patience and practice, you'll soon use Zoom confidently and with ease. Zoom Meeting Guide for Seniors. I'm Huey Poplock.
What is a pack?
No, we're not going to do that. All right. Come on. All right. Stop sharing. All right. Now it's already after 9 o'clock. I let that one play out. So I'm going to be setting up in the chat the shared documents. You guys can unmute and talk or ask questions, discuss things.
I had one thing to mention, a little tip. If you're on Windows 11 and they have the automatic backup to OneDrive, they just have the 5 or 6 folders that do the backup. So I suggest under the Documents folder, make a bunch of subfolders to the desire of how you like to organize your data. And then it'll be included in the backups each time.
Okay, both documents should be in the chat. Has everybody downloaded your copy of the 2 documents?
Yep. Didn't like the first one and thought that was maybe there was a problem with it, but I downloaded it anyway.
Well, this is all I have for the meeting, and unless somebody's got something else or question or problem right at the end here, while everybody's getting their copy of the downloads. Hearing nothing else, we'll call it quits for this month. We'll see what evolves next month.
Okay.
Very good.
Thanks for another interesting meeting.
Okay. Hope somebody got something out of the whole thing.